be talking about Dynamo. So let me just allow me to share my screen. Give me a moment. Okay. So the theme of today's webinar is Unlock Smarter Arenas Design using Dynamo Automation. So today's we'll be more focusing on Dynamo Automation and how we can implement all these things into Arena. Because our concept of design advanced theme is Arena, so we'll be talking more about onto that particular topic, right? And let me just firstly introduce my company. So we are Arcans, and we are having a sponsorship or a partnership for Ethos Design Advance. And let me just move forward and let me introduce myself. I'm Kulsum Mera. I'm one of the BIM specialist and solution consultant at Arcans based out of Gurgaon. And now I would like to introduce Arcans. So Arcans is a strong MNC with a strong technical teams. We are presented at 5 regions: America, Europe, India, APAC, and Australia as well. We have 150 plus more technical supports. We have 40 technical resources and 325 technical resources in Europe also. We also provide project support specialization. We help in software onboarding and licensing specialist. We help to you to automate your project using some specialization tools as well. And we also focus on technicalities of industry. After that, I would like to just mention briefly what are our industry focus. So majorly we focus on AEC, which is architecture, engineering, construction industry. After that, we focus on manufacturing part as well. We have a education sector as well as a part of our portfolio. In education, we train professionals, students, corporates, and universities and educations for BIM. What is BIM? We give hands-on training and more softwares about it. We also have a sector related to entertainment. If you want to learn more about media and entertainment, you have some queries or need any kind of support, so we have that particular sector as well as we are into consulting services, government, graphic arts and computing, as well as we also sales hardware. Instead of softwares, we also sales hardware and services. So this is all our portfolio, and as an Arcans, we do all these services. Now I would like to introduce Anvita to have a brief about Design Advanced theme. She'll talk you more about it. Over to you, Anvita.
Thank you, Kulsum. I'll just share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, it is visible.
All right, great. Hello, everyone. Once again, thank you all for joining us for today's session. Before we move on to the software part of it, we would like to take 10 minutes of your time to introduce Design Advanced Competition. So let's also look at the theme today, the task, the participation guidelines, and the most frequently asked questions by a few of our participants. So as you can see it loud on your screen, the theme is called Beyond the Game, Adaptive Arenas for Tomorrow. What is the first thing that everyone thinks when they talk about arena design? They imagine a group of thousands of spectators watching the favorite sport they love the most. So the idea of arenas have been transforming over time, where it's not single-use venue anymore, it's not fixed anymore, where people are wanting to celebrate the space in a much larger gathering. So this year, with the intention to diversify the public architecture, Design Advance explores the future of it. So one of the biggest typologies when we talk about public architecture is arena design. The way we design spaces define our urban environment. As we are rapidly getting urbanized every single day, the lack of space, but the demand for more functions have been increasing exponentially. So what is the next step we take as responsible designers of tomorrow? To design spaces that cater more than one purpose or more than one intention. So this year, the theme of Design Advance, Beyond the Game, Adaptive Arenas for Tomorrow, ask the participants to think about multi-purpose arenas that embrace the architecture, which is flexible, ephemeral, and also reversible. For this, the structure needs to be in a certain way that it can transform overnight or even disappear if the change demands. So before we dive into the task for today, let's also understand the evolution of arenas and why you think it's the need of the why we think it's the need of the hour for this particular design challenge this year. So in the past, thousands of years ago, when you look at the first arenas, they were not just a part of cricket or concerts, but they were far more primal, where gladiators fought against each other, bullfights were happening, with thousands of spectators sitting all across in a circle. So over years, the idea of entertainment changed, it diversified, and people loved watching sports, celebrated their cultures, and also came together at one spot as a unity. So, what do we do when we are trying to cater to the population of India or globe per se, and the kind of cultures and the kind of games and the kind of venues we come across needs also to be diversified. So, we need to think more about a structure that can change to each and every desired entertainment spot that a person or a community wants. For this, we all need to think about how well the venue can be adapted with respect to seating, with respect to sightlines, with respect to area, with respect to functionality and zoning. So this is a remarkable shift that we see lately where even stadiums have been hosting concerts, which are not only catering to conventional sports. So as we go forward and dive deep into the task, like we already mentioned, the challenge is to design not only multifunctional space, but also a space that is sustainable, accessible, and future-proof. As we are strongly talking about public architecture, it needs to be accessed by every single person who walks into the stadium. So accessibility is one of the top-notch priorities that everybody needs to think about. Talking about modularity, smart pop-ups that will come and go down, and also about the flexible arrangement that can also cater to the globalized audience apart from the local context. So this year, we also talk about the guidelines in the site program in a very large scale. So we are looking at any site in an urban city. It can be a tier 1 or tier 2 city of your choice in India or abroad or elsewhere if you see the brief seeming fit to it. The site area should span across 10 to 15 acres and it should be capable of accommodating up to 40,000 spectators for a major event at least. When we talk about the structurality and modularity of the stadiums or arena designs, we often forget about the carbon footprint and the environmental factors that it caters to. So please think about the climate and cultural context also. We see a Dubai-based stadium and a stadium based in Spain looking the same. So there should be some cultural context to it. How different can you design a stadium in Pune versus Hyderabad to Dubai? Like how are you using the region and local context with respect to the modern technology that architecture is supporting these days? Please consider on those lines of context as well. Of course, as architects, we are more responsible. We abide the local bylaws and the National Building Code, look at your site availabilities at a public space, where are you choosing your site, and try to design accordingly. And also apart from the designing of the arena internally, also look at it as an element of the urban fabric. How are the external points triggered with respect to the architecture, and how are the nodes transforming with respect to this particular placement is also something that you need to look at a macro scale level. So considering all these, we move on towards pointing out 7 crisp design considerations we would like the participants to think about, which you already know, where adaptability and multifunctionality is at the core of this project, where the planning itself or using the strategies itself or even the technology itself should be adaptable and scalable to any scale. So then we talk about crowd management. As intimate as 10,000 people to as large as 40,000 people, the range and the scale should be very flexible for designing. And universal accessibility and user experience, as it's a public space, the first and foremost are public of diverse backgrounds. So we need to make sure it's accessible by all. Coming to sustainability and climate responsiveness, we need to be responsible about the carbon footprint, the passive design strategies, and the kind of roofing systems, glazing, facades, a different kind of things that we use for retaining the sustainability of the project. It should be ephemeral and circular in nature, meaning it should be disassembled and assembled as we wish to. We talk about the cultural sensitivity and architectural identity, which is a very important part of aesthetic that we as architects talk about. And lastly, but we also use AI to the advantage, how digital infrastructure and integration can also play a very important role in our arena design. So every competition comes with an appreciation, and Design Advance also comes with top-notch prizes that you see on your screen. The crash prizes for the top three winners range from 75,000, 50,000, and 25 follows. And the top 10 entries will be published on the website, and top three winners get a free entry to Archons in BIM for Design program 120 hours. All participants who submitted the entry on time will also get a discount voucher of 40% for the BIM for Design program as well as e-certificates. And there will be a recognition for the institutes that adopt this particular design brief in their studios for their students. These are the participation details. On your right is the eligibility criteria. The registrations are open and they close on 16th of October and the submissions close on 29th of October. And coming to the participation eligibility, all the undergraduate and postgraduate students of architecture, engineering, planning, design globally are eligible to participate in this competition. And recent graduates and young professionals, including 2025 graduates or indeed 2023 and later, are also eligible to participate. The team can comprise of maximum of 3 members, and you can make teams within colleges, within practices if you're a young professional, and interdisciplinary convergence is definitely encouraged. So as we come to the end of our presentation, here are a few very simple but most often asked questions for us. Is there any registration fee for the competition and workshop? Absolutely no. Both of them are free. The second question is, I am a student from an institute placed out of India and I don't see my school listed. Am I still eligible? Definitely eligible. So all the design students worldwide can check the terms and conditions. And if you see your college that is not found on the registration website, just click on not listed, enter your college name, and it will automatically accept your entry. So the other question is, can the team members be from different colleges? Absolutely, like we discussed on the previous slides, inter-college, inter-batches, inter-practices, any disciplinary, interdisciplinary exchange is definitely welcome. And here we also have, what if one of my teammate can't attend after registration? There's no problem. Though we have given up to 3 members of participation per group, there's no rule that individual entries are not allowed. You can definitely have your shot designed by yourself and submit that entry even if your teammate backs down. Can we choose a site on our own? Definitely, you can. You have all the freedom to choose your own site in any city of your choice, but preferably Tier 1 and Tier 2 city. So the last question for the day we have is, I have already worked on an Arena project in the past. Can I resubmit it? Absolutely. If you have worked on any Arena or project designs in the past, you can either modify it and improve your design or submit as it is if you think it's already in line with the brief. So you can definitely reuse your old submissions and kind of modify them and submit it for the competition. So with this, we come to the end of the presentation. This is largely what we aim to achieve this year to change the future of public architecture by designing arenas that go beyond the gate. So you can see a registration QR on your screen. You can right away scan and register, or else we will definitely drop the link on the chat box. And we hope to see incredible entries from every one of you. Thank you for your time. Over to you, Kulsum.
Thank you, Anvita, for this beautiful presentation and deep in dive detail of brief. So let me just share my screen, and we would now talking about how we can use Dynamo and you can say automation into our design. Before we start our presentation, I would like to highlight some points which is says computational design. When we talk about Dynamo, the first term that comes into your mind or most of the people's mind is computational design. What is computational design? So firstly, we'll be talking briefly about this, that what is computational design. And if I give you in short, in computational design, you can use patterns, a lot of patterns in recognition. You can go for decompositions of pattern. You can go for abstract, sorry, I'm so sorry for that, abstraction of your patterns. If you want to generalize your patterns, that can also be things. If you want to go with the algorithm, you have some formula calculated and you want that particular formula to be inputted into your design. That thing can also be done with computational design. So when we think about computational design, these are some terms that is going to be highlighted in your mind from now on, that all these things can be done with using computational design. And after that, not just computational design, we have a lot more terms which use vice versa or in depth when we talk about Dynamo. computational design is one of the word. Another word you might have more heard of is parametric design, generative design, algorithm design. All these terms that you see onto your screen right now, these are all related to Dynamo. If we talk about any computational design, we are talking about Dynamo. If we are talking about parametric design, we are talking about Dynamo. We are talking about algorithm design, that is also means we are talking about Dynamo. But the nodes, the packages are going to be different. The making of the script is going to be different. But in depth, we are going to talk about Dynamo. That is what you will be having these terms, and you can align yourself when we talk about these terms. That means, in short, we are talking about Dynamo. So that is how Dynamo and computational terms relate to each other over here. After this, now I would just like to showcase you in layman term, if I say this parametric design, computational design, Dynamo, automation, what all these things are. So when we introduce human intelligence, which is us humans, and when we put our minds and when we make our minds in addition with computer algorithm, that is means we are going into computational design. It means we are using a human mind as well as computer algorithms or programming, or you can say adaptation or visualization of that computer. That is called as computational design. If you talk about computational design or parametric design in two layman terms, that means you are using a person as well as a computer knowledge or computer language to make your design more readable or designable enough. After this, now there's a specific definition for defining what is computational design. So computational design is basically a process for strategies that you can do, and these strategies are referred to taking decisions using a computer language. When we talk about strategies, what strategies we want to follow to achieve a tower or achieve a arena or achieve multiple options to create arena, so that particular strategy using computer language are called as uh, computational design. And obviously for this approach you are going to use a lot of combination, a lot of geometry is going to be introduced, as well as you are going to use a lot of calculation using BIM models, complex orders, forms and structure. And using all this approach, when we talk about computational design, that is means we are talking about automation, Dynamo over here. So this is a brief definition. Now I would like to just showcase you a small video how facades, how adaptive shells, or how automation can impact arenas. And just let me just add a audio over here. Just a moment. Let me just reshare my screen. Okay. And let me just play this. These are basically 5 facades that we are going to talk about, and these are called as dynamic facade. And one of the term that I have lost into my PPT was dynamic facade is also a term when we talk about computational design or Dynamo. In this facade, this is a Kaifer showroom you can see, and into that particular showroom, if we talk about what we are doing, we have installed 54 motors into the facade, and using these 54 motors, we are making these facades to be movable enough. These are working as a shading device of the facade. Next is Brisbane Airport. In Brisbane Airport, the aluminium plates, these are not actually an example for dynamic facade, but it's an example that how dynamic facade can help you to create wind energy or solar energy or wind powered facade into any particular use afterwards. That is what in that particular example has been showcasing. And after that, let me just play this. And over here, we are using 250,000 aluminum plates into the facade. These are constantly moving as the wind blows. Third example is Al-Bahar Tower. Al-Bahar Tower is one of the major example of dynamic facade when we talk about dynamo and automation. Why it is in biggest example? Because in that particular example, we were using panels, which is PTFE panels. These panels are working as a shading device, and with the location of sun, these changes their orientation. If the sun moves in the direction, these opens, and if the sun moves out of the direction, these closes. So that is how it works into that. The fourth example is Galerius Center. Over here also the light has been used into the automation and it creates an effect, and into this aluminum profiles are being used, vertical profiles. And the last and the latest one is One Ocean's kinetic facade. These are all the lamellas, aluminum plates, you can say, made out of glass fiber plastic. And into this lamellas, we are using again automation to move that particular lamellas into a movement. And on these five examples which I have showcased you, we are using automation or dynamo. After that, now we'll be talking about more programming, because when we talk about programming also comes in Dynamo. And the programming, there are two types of programming over here. One is text-based programming that you can see currently onto my screen. And in text-based programming, it's basically that you can go onto Google, right click on it, and you can see the site references over here. That is called as text-based programming. And let me just show you one example over here. If I go on to Zoom, this is Zoom screen of mine. If I right click on it and if I go on to view page source, you can see that over any page that you find onto Chrome or any page you find onto Google, all these pages consist of a lot of program. And these programming which currently you are seeing onto my screen, that is called as text-based programming. And these are not the programming that you can do as a designer and as an architect. You are not able to do these kind of programming. Instead of that, instead of most computational use text-based programming, what we can do, we can go for visual-based program. That we can do, and we are happy to work with that also. Now, I'll just showcase you another example for visual programming. So how visual programming works. In Dynamo, we have a terminology of, you can say, element or component called as nodes. These nodes are, you can see onto your screen right now. It's basically a script which has been created just to import a file from Excel to Revit. This is a script which has been created. Into this, you can see whatever the thing you are doing, it is being written over here. If you want to choose the path of the file, you can simply just click on the browse, and as you click on the browse, you can choose the path. If you want to choose the Excel sheet, because when we import any Excel, we have the name of a specific sheet, and out of that particular specific sheet, you want to name that what kind of sheet I want to import. So that name you can put it over here. Similarly, when we go and talk about visual programming using Dynamo, that means we are removing the traditional method of text-based programming from visual programming. In visual programming, you can see, you can visualize whatever the changes you are doing, whatever the things you are doing, you can see it all onto your screen. And as an architect also, we are built up like that only, that we want to see what are we doing. Even at any particular one step we have gone wrong, so we also want to see that as well. That is why visual based programming has been done. And I just want to showcase you an example between the difference of text based programming and visual based programming. There's a paper crane model onto my screen, and onto this paper crane model, you can see right now there are two different options to create this paper crane model. If I ask you to create this paper crane model, there will be two options. One is this textual instruction which is written in front of you right now. Another is this graphical instruction. So out of these two, what is going to be the best method that you can choose? And according to me and according to the most of the surveys that we have done, people usually choose graphical method. Why they choose graphical method? Because they can see at every another step what the changes has been done, or are they achieving what has been told into this step or not. That is why we people as an architect, as an engineer, go towards the graphical representation. That's a best example to understand how Dynamo works. Instead of having the text-based programming or textual instruction, we are going for visual. Now, I would like to talk about what is Dynamo. So when we talk about Dynamo, if we go in a definition, Dynamo is basically a tool in which we can have a graphical access to programming interface. Like I have showcased you for that example, paper crane model that is giving a graphical access to create a programming for programming interface, which aims to be accessible for both non-programmers and programmers. Obviously, programmers can also work on this, but as a non-programmers like us, we can also work on Dynamo because there is a more visual approach to the programming. It is more suited to, as an architect, as an engineer, or as another designer, we are more suited to work on Dynamo. And currently in Dynamo, we have different tools which is available. First option is Dynamo Sandbox, which is an open source environment for Dynamo that you can go and use Dynamo. and it is free with limited versions, with limited functions. Basically, you don't have a lot of functions which you will be having in inbuilt one. Then if you talk about Dynamo, Dynamo is inbuilt it into Revit. Before that, it was, I think, Revit 2019 or 18. It was not inbuilt it into Revit. But after that, after every version of Revit, you have inbuilt Dynamo with yourself. And with Revit, we have Dynamo with Civil 3D, with Alias, so with the Format. All these Revits are going to be inbuilt for these softwares, as well as you can, if that is not inbuilt, you can use a plugin, and these plugins can also be accessible for Autodesk Advanced Steel as well as for Alias. You can install a plugin and you can use that plugin for other softwares as well. Now, after that, I would like to tell you about which is the main component of Dynamo, that is Dynamo Node. When we talk about Dynamo, the second step when we are going to talk about is node. That how nodes work, what is node, how we are going to understand nodes. Because if I take you directly onto the interface of Dynamo, you will be able to think like that this is not the interface how we used to work. So that is why I'm just sharing a small brief about that how Dynamo nodes work. Firstly, we'll understand the structure of Dynamo nodes. Dynamo nodes are divided into four types. First comes is the name of Dynamo, and usually the names suggested by Dynamo nodes are basically that what function they are going to do or what function they are supposed to do. So like this, you can see on to my screen, it is written as Dynamo node, and it is also showcasing me the name of the node point by coordinate. It means that this particular node will help me to place a point onto a coordinate. Coordinates are going to be your xyz coordinates. You are going to define the value of xyz coordinate, and those values can be integer, default value, double, any particular value you can select it, and these values are going to be done. Then the values that you are going to input over here, those are called as input, and after the creation of your point, that is called as output. So this is your output, and whatever the things you have done till this particular node, you can also see it in a preview. So we have a preview bubble as well. So this is what Dynamo nodes looks like, and you can say by the name of the Dynamo what function they're supposed to do. After that, Dynamo nodes are basically divided into three categories: create node, action node, and query node. Create nodes are basically to create anything. Action, they'll impact or they'll reflect some action which is going to be done. Query, if you want to know the parameter value, then you can use query node. Let's just suppose you want to know the cell height of a parameter of doors, or you want to know the width of the doors that you are using into your model. All these kind of things comes under the query node. Then when we talk about nodes, the next thing which works with nodes, which will help you us to work with nodes, are as data types. So there are basically 5 data types that we are going to use. String, when we talk about text, that means we are talking about strings. When we talking about integer, that means we are talking about non-decimal number. That number cannot be a decimal. If we talk about integer, that means we are talking about non-decimal numbers. Then doubles, it can be a decimal number. List means number of list or elements comprising into multiple things can be a list. Then booleans are basically true and false, that you can state whatever the definition it is written into a node, is this true and false. That is how working with Dynamo nodes will work, that you need to first understand what are the data types that we are going to use. Now, after that, let me just first showcase you how the interface looks like before we jump into the arrangement of seating. Let me just allow me a second to share my another screen. Okay. So this is the interface of Dynamo looks like. I think you guys might be aware of that it looks like this. And if you want to go and work with any Dynamo node, you can simply search it over here by the name of that particular node, or let's just suppose you are not aware of the node, so you can use these functions. There are different functions according to categories that you can use. For Revit, we have different nodes over here. For views, we have different nodes. For elements, we have different nodes. According to elements, again, they are again subdivided into different categories. So let's just suppose for dimension, we want to have some nodes. This is for dimension. Again, for element, let's just suppose I want to get to know the parameter of any particular element, or I want to know the parameter value by the element name. So I can just simply click it over here and my node will come. And by the use of Dynamo, eventually you'll also get to remember some of the name of the nodes. That if I want to know the name of the parameter, that means I'm going to use a get parameter. If I want to set the parameter, then I'll be using the set parameter node. So that is how the nodes looks like. And like I said, the name of the node will also tells you about that what kind of work we are going to do. So it says get parameter value by name. That is means I am going to extract the value of a parameter using the name of that particular parameter. And if I show you the inputs, in inputs we have two inputs. One is element, another is parameter name. And if I scroll over onto the element means it is asking me to select a Revit element. So you need to select a Revit element, only then it is going to tell me the value. And if I go on to the next option, which is a parameter, so in parameter you can see a small definition or a description is given over here, the name of the parameter whose value you want to obtain. Whatever the value you want to obtain from here, you can just simply write the name, and it is written as a string. That means we are talking about a text that you are going to input over here. And over here you are going to select an element, that is why it is written as element, that you want to select it over here. So that is how your notes looks like, your interface looks like. This is the library that you can use. And we also have one more thing which is called as packages. Why I'm telling you packages right now is because packages are most important thing in Dynamo. Why it is most important thing? Because there will be a lot of nodes that you don't have in default Dynamo, right? You can simply go on to Revit, go on to manage. Under the manage tab, you have Dynamo, but the packages or the nodes that you want to create out of it won't be over there. For that, there are a lot of people who work daily on Dynamo and they have created some packages. So they share their packages onto a package. So you can just simply select on search package. You can type, if you are aware of the name of the package, you can type the name of the package, and that package is going to be available for you to install. So I already have a lot of package installed onto my system. Let me just show you. Okay, if I go down, you can see currently these all dictionary till units we have these are default, and as we comes on add-on, so I have all these add-ons. These are all the packages that I have installed, and we can also create our own packages. So I might be also having one package by my name. So that particular package relates to me. So if you want to create a package or if you want to create a custom node, after creating custom node, you want to publish that custom node onto any website, like everyone can use those nodes as well. So you can also publish your package as well. So in packages we have two options. One is for search a package and another is for publishing a package. So all those things are over here and you can use these as well. Now again, I would like to just go back onto my presentation. Now we'll be talking more about seating arrangement, because when we talk about arenas, that means we are going to talk about seatings, which is most important thing and which will take a lot of time of yours, that how you want your seating arrangement to be done. For that, if firstly let's just break the anatomy of stadium. So stadium is divided into four levels, which is event level. Event level can be, you can say, field, where your cricket match is going to be done, your concert is going to be done, or you can say your match is going to be done. That is your event field. After that, then we comes to a lower bowl. Over here, your seatings are going to be done. So this is your lower bowl. Then comes to our concourse. Concourse are basically the corridor which is going to connect your lower bowl as well as upper bowl. So the last one is upper bowl, and at upper bowl we also have some seatings over here. You can say these are two major places where seatings are going to be done: lower bowl and the upper bowl. So we are going to more focus about how we are going to set our tier 1. You can also say them to be a tier 1 and tier 2. If you want to set your tier 1 and tier 2, how you want to set your tier 1 and tier 2, you can set it over here like this. So this is the basic anatomy that I have divided it stadium into. You can also divide it yourself, that what kind of stadium and design you are going to divide it afterwards. Then comes our seatings. So when we are comes to seating, you can see this is how your seating arrangement or section of a stadium looks like. It is not related to something, but what thing I want to showcase you, there's a focus point, and this particular focus point that you see there, this is going to lie onto the field so that each person onto this particular seating can have a perfect view without any obstacle, without any hindrance, can see this particular focal point. That is how we are going to define our sight line for designing arenas or stadium, so that there will be no obstruction, no hindrance into the view of any particular person who is sitting onto these chairs or sidelines. And let me just show you one more thing. After this, then we comes to our C value. When we go for designing your seating platform, the one thing which is going to be most requested or required is C value. C value is basically the sight value which is going to be required if someone even stands from you or is sitting in front of you. So what is going to be the actual value to indicate it into the focus point? That is what C value indicates, and it needs to be clear enough so that everyone beneath onto the seating can see that. After that, let us suppose we have one particular row which is for handicapped or it is related to handicap. According to that also, you need to give it into consideration that how your height riser is going to be extended so that without even standing, a handicapped person can also see the focal point very clearly as someone stands in front of them. So that is how the C value is going to be calculated. But for C value, you don't need to go with a lot more derivation. Instead of that, we have a specific formula to calculate the C value. C value calculation, the formula is this: C equals to D n plus R divided by D plus T minus R. Now, what this particular formula means, you can relate it to this particular diagram. That means C is the your actual C value which we are talking about without any hindrance, and your D is the horizontal distance that you are going to obtain from your eye point to the focus point. That what is your eye point and what is your focus point. Then the number of risers n comes is the riser height, that what is the riser height. Then R comes as the vertical height to the focus point, that how you want it to be height enough so that your focus point can be clear enough. Then T is the seating row depth. What is the row depth you are talking about for your seating calculation? So this is the formula that you are going to use to have a clearer vision for your seating value, right? And after having all this calculation, and when you are done with your C value, then we can go and move forward with the designing of our seating. And this is the formula which I have written it over here. You can also see it onto your screen, that what D stands for, what T stands for, what R stands for, and what C stands for. Now let me just again take you back onto the Dynamo screen so that I can showcase you another method that how you are going to relate it with the Dynamo. So if I go onto this, you can see I have created a field, and out of the field I have also created a offset. This offset is basically an offset you want to have a distance between your field to until you start your seating. That is the distance I have mentioned it over here. And onto this screen, firstly I'll just open my Dynamo. So just a moment, I'll just open my Dynamo. And I have already created one layout, so I'm not going to create a layout. I'm just going to, okay, it is opening. And sorry for that, I think my system is hanging a bit. Okay, everyone can see my Dynamo screen, because I'm not sure if you can or not. Okay, let me just reshare it then. Okay. Okay, so this is the Dynamo, right? In this Dynamo screen, you can see the things which is going to be most important is how you want your package to be run or how you want your script to be run. In scripting, we have two methods. One is manual, another is automatic. We are always ask people to set it on manual so that whatever you are doing, your system won't go into running that particular script, because once you are done with your script, it will ask you to run that particular script to make it work onto the Revit. That is why we always say that just keep it to be manual, and after once you have completed your script, then you can select on run and it will run for you. Now in this script, I'm just going to showcase you what the things I have used and how I have created this particular script. Firstly, I'm going to use a package. That is why I have mentioned package before that. In package, I'm going to use a package by the name of BVN. BVN over here, it's a package created. I'm not sure by whom it is created. I'm just not recalling the name. So it's a package over here. In this package, we have a specific category by the name of Stadium. In Stadium, you have the option that you can use it to create your rows, to create your curves, to place your seats, to place your profile curves, to calculate your C value. The C value which I have showcased you, we are talking about that C value of a stadium. So you can simply select on the C value. This node will come onto your screen, and in this node it is written as how you want to calculate your C value. So you can see that seating row depth is over here. iSoft at rear is there. Focus, what is going to be the focus distance? So I have mentioned this, that these are all my focus distance and the numerical value I'm going to follow. And after discussing this, after creating all these, now I can just simply select on this and I can simply run. And once I select on run, it will create the whole seating layout for me. This is as easy as I'm telling you this. You can see that it has created all the seating layout for me. According to me, it has been created. You can also create it using any manual method. So I have used it to be a manual. I have selected all those green line which I have showcased you, the offset line. I've selected those offset line using model elements, select model elements. Then after this, I have converted into a geometry, and using that particular geometry, if I showcase you, you can see that it has created all the seating layout for me. Currently, I am just talking about tier one of the seating layout, which is, you can say, lower bowl of seating. But if you want to create an upper bowl, you can just change the numerical values over here. And once you change the numerical value, it is going to be created. This is a manual method. Instead of this, because I have used another, you can say, node, which is stadium model curve, because I want to curve the model, I want to curve the layout, I want Dynamo to change the layout for me. That is why I have used this one. And if you don't want to use this one, if you want to use profile or curve, if you already have created some kind of profile, you can use another profile curve node, which is this particular node. Let me just select this one. I'm just going to showcase you. And out of these nodes, you can see we have thickness option, we have row option. And after, once you have selected all these options, it is going to create a seating layout for you. And you can also see that it is going to also calculate all the z coordinates of my stadium, all the z coords of I, all the riser size which I'm going to use, and all the offsets which I'm going to use. And after that, once you have calculated all these values, you can create your seating layout very easily. And I have also given it to be a name because I have created the geometry or the sweep by the Dynamo itself. That is why I have selected the category to be generic model, and I have named it to be a seating ball. So that is how you are going to create your seating bowls for your first tier and second tier using Dynamo script like this. And I have also showcased you what package is going to be best usage suitable according for your use for defining your seat, right? And let's move forward. This is how we are going to make our seats. This is a manual method, but again, like I said, if you want to go with the creation your profile, you can use this particular node, profile curves, and it will help you to create profile curves. And in seating layout, we also have gangways. So if instead of going another method which is called as that, in gangways you can create another script, but the best method would be that you create some voids, and using those words onto your seating layouts according to your design, you create those gangways. So that is how your seating layout is going to be defined a bit more easier, right? And after that, now we'll move forward. Now I would just like to highlight you a one case study for Arena, and that case study is Aviva Stadium. Aviva Stadium is in Dublin, and in this you can see the seating layout has been done. It is built on a location of Lansdowne Road in Dublin, and it's the most world oldest international rugby venue. Was the most international oldest rugby venue. It has been replaced by that. It has been replaced by that. It has a capacity of 51,000 spectators. You can see all the values. And why I have chosen this particular one case study, because it is showcasing me all the anatomy of a stadium very clearly. You can see that we have first the field, the pitch, the standing area. Then you have a first bowl, then you have a second bowl, then you have the corridor, and then you have a third bowl, or you can say the upper bowl. So this is how the facade has been created. And in this facade was environmental friendly as well. It was created using modular polycarbonate louvers responded by daylight and site context. That is when it was created using automation. It is site sustainable in forms of build. It is using created using recycled materials as well, so that rainwater harvesting and project set sustainable design standards align to the design aspiration as well. And into this particular stadium, now I would like to just showcase you another script, which is just a moment. Let me just share my another screen for Revit. Okay. And into this particular one, you can see that I don't have anything. Why I don't have anything? Because I just want to show you a small script which is for let's just suppose you want to create a circle, because once we have created the seating, now we move forward to create the outer shell, which I have showcased you. That particular outer shell we are talking about, and that outer shell also will need to have some kind of profile. So first your profile is going to be created, and how we create profile, we don't have any option that you can simply select a circle and you can create a profile for circle in Dynamo over here. Instead of that, we have geometry library. Into the geometry library, you have a lot of curves. You can use arcs, you can use circles, you can use ellipse. So we have a lot of curves over here that you can use. And into this, I'm just going to showcase you a small script. Let's just select the center point radius, and I'm going to create a circle. So in this particular circle, what is it asking me for? Firstly, it is just telling me that I'm using this one to create a circle using the center point of a circle as well as the radius of circle. So I'm going to define that what is going to be the center point of this circle. So I'm going to define a value over here. And after that, I'm going to define the value of the radius, that what is going to be the radius value. And in both the inputs, you can see it is written as I can select a default value, and over here I can select a double value. So double value means that I'm going to select that this particular value lies in you can say what we were talking about, radius, integer, basically integer we are talking about. For center point, firstly I need to understand that where my center point lies. So my center point is going to lie on the z, x and y coordinates, right? It can be 0 0 0, or it can be 0 2 3, it can be 0 3 2. Whatever the point coordinate you are going to use, you need to define those point coordinates. For defining those point coordinates, you are going to use point by coordinate, and that's an another node that you are going to use. Let me just select that. Okay, it is not getting selected, just a moment, let me just search it. Okay, so we have coordinates. Okay, let me just use this coordinate system. Okay, I'm just going to find a coordinate in which I can select x, y, and z. So I'll select this one. This is the one by coordinates point, so that it will help me to place a point, and it will also let me choose the value of x, y, z all by it at once. And if I select the value, you can see it is asking me to select a value for x, y, z. I can use a number, and you can use a slider, or you can use a number integer. So I'm going to use a number integer or a slider integer. You can also fix the value as minus minimum to maximum. And once you fix the value, it is going to be sustained over here. And let me just select it over here. I'll select the point, and once you select the point, your selection is going to be done. And you can see my circle has been created. Similarly, I'll just use this particular integer again. I'll copy it over here, and I'll define the radius as well. And once I define the radius, the whole circle is going to be created. So this is how we create any particular circle or any particular form in Revit, like in Dynamo, like this. This is one method. And now I would like to just showcase you that how we are going to create any form, any shell using Dynamo. So let me just open another script of mine. I'll just select open. I'll say no, and I'll open this one. This is a parametric stadium script. which I have already been created. And in this, the way I have showcased you how to create a circle, I have used that particular method to create this script into different forms. Like I have defined one shell, then another shell, then another shell. That is how this script has been created. And you can see currently it's looking a mess to you, but it is way more detailed out so that you can understand how I have created this. So this is one layer, then this is another arc of the stadium, then this is another arc. Or as I move any of the integer or number slider, the shape of my stadium will change. And I have also used one another aspects over here, that is a set format, that I can export my geometry into a format of set, and I can use it as a mask in place in Revit to define more out of my geometry. So that thing can also be possible, and let me just run it to showcase you how my script will run. And you can see that my stadium has been created. If I go with Control B, you can see your my stadium has been created. This is the outer shell. Once you are done with the seating layout, you can define your outer shell like this. Just a moment. Okay, it is taking some time. And now it is working. Okay, I'm not sure. It is taking some time because it's a huge script and it's a large script. That is why it is taking time. Let me again just go for Control B. And once I go for Control B, now you can see if I change any value, any Z value, any number slider over here, because these are connected or has been created using the points. And these points, when I choose them to be movable, that they will change the position and location. And after changing the position and location, the geometry will also change. And once my geometry is going to be changed, you can see once I again click on run, your geometry will impact accordingly. And you can see as I selected only one slider and change the slider over here, it is going to be changed the whole geometry of your stadium. So you can use this particular method to create your stadium and change the geometry according to your need. You need to define what are the going to be the points that you are going to create. It is going to be either an elliptical stadium, it is going to be a circular stadium, or it is going to be any other shaped stadium. So you can use this automation tool, which is Dynamo. And after this, like I told you, that you can use also a stat exporter over here, like I have used. Let me just showcase you. I have used this particular node that export this particular model of mine into a form of stat. And why I'm exporting in form of stat is that I can use and define it more easily as I export in a form of stat. And how I'm going to do that, let me just showcase you that as well. Okay, and I think my Revit screen is now visible. Yes, yes, I think it is now visible. So I can you can also see that if I go into 3D, just a moment. If I go into 3D, I can also see this particular shape which I have created. You can also see and check your shape how you wanted to create. You can also change the units. Currently my units is set to be millimeter, that is why it has been created so small. But once you select your unit of Revit to be meter, it will work fine for you. And I just want to like to show you that how we are going to use SAT model to import into Revit and define its credibility. So if I go into in place, and in place mask we have insert, and in insert if I select it to be import CAD, then you will be having an option that you can also import a SAT mod. So while importing any particular CAD, you can also change the typology of your files. And once you change the typology of file, you can select any particular SAT file over here, select on import, and it is going to be imported for you to be over here. And you can see that my model has also been imported. I can simply select on the finish so that my mask has been finished. You can then use curve curtain system, which is available in architecture to define more how you want to how you want your shape to be defined. I'm just going to select all the surfaces. So I have basically two surfaces. And once my surfaces has been selected to be curtain system, then you can define what number you want. You can also change the type of material of the curtain system. Currently it is set to be glass, but you can again change it to according to your need. That if you want another PTFE type of material, you want another type of material which is going to be used over here onto your stadium. So you can also change the material as well of your curtain system. So you can, if you simply select on your system panel, you have edit, and to edit you can change the material as well as the thickness of material, how the finish is going to look like, all these settings over here as well. And currently you can see it is not uh, actually adapting the positioning or adapting the location of my surface or adapting the positioning of my shelf. For that I can just simply change the values of the grid, and as I change the value of my grid, you will be able to see that how easily it is going to be pasted onto my shell. So that is how you can use any Dynamo automation for importing while you change any particular shell of yours or exterior facade using Dynamo. And you can also do it with multiple layers, because once you export in form of that, you can export it in multiple forms. So that is how we are going to do it. So it is just taking some time, and that is all for Dynamo automation. And if you have any doubt till it is getting done, if you have any doubt, any query, you can just drop it into the message. And now you can see that the change has been done, and you can see how precisely it has been set it onto my exterior facade. So you can select your exterior facade, you can choose your exterior facade, you can choose how you want your exterior facade to be looking. You can also change the panels over here, you can define your panels more accurately using Dynamo. So that is how you can create multiple options. Currently I have only exported one option, but you can export multiple options to create any facade of yours, right? And that's it all for Dynamo automation. If you have any doubt, any query, let us know into the Q&A section. What is the plugin used for stadium modeling in Dynamo? That package, it is BVN. Let me just write it for you. It is BVN. You can just simply go onto the package, search that particular package, and you can install it. Okay. No worries. Any other doubt if you guys have? Okay, I guess no doubt. For movable facade, firstly, I am just going to tell you in theoretical manner that how it is has been done. In the last session, if you go into Design Advanced recordings, you can also see that we have a session for adaptive facade. In that adaptive facade, I have mentioned that how you can use Dynamo scripts, how you can create multiple facade, movable facade using adaptive PAM. So first you need to create an adaptive family. Once you create that particular adaptive family, then you can import that adaptive family onto your facade. So that is how you are going to create any movable facade or kinetic or parametric facade. We had discussed it into the, I think, I'm not sure what the date was, but previous sessions. Please share the script used. Okay, we'll see if we can share the script or not. I'm not quite sure right now, but we'll see. Okay, then we have, please record the session. Yes, we are recording the session and we'll upload it onto the website of Design Advanced 2025. Okay, can we only export SAT format or we can also export RFA format? I think we can export RFA format also, but I haven't tried it yet because SAT was more easier for me. But I think yes, we can do it. RFA also we can do it. Okay, I think that's it for all. Okay, guys, thank you all. Thank you for your time. And we are going to close the session, close this webinar. Thank you all. Bye bye.